Got it. All right. Could you advance us to the next slide?
Let's make sure I can. There we go.
All right, I'll try and go a little faster to catch us up with some time here. But at Lawrence School, we have a team scenario, and there's 3 teams per grade. So your child will land on either team 1, 2, or 3 next year, and there will be about 90 students on each team, and each team will have a common math, ELA, science, and social studies teacher that might be supported by a special education teacher and a teaching assistant. And each team will have a team meeting every other day, which is a great opportunity for the team teachers to make sure that they're doing everything they can to support your child as they talk about best practices that are working for a student, or some strategies that they've used. They've had success with one kid that might not be working in another discipline. And then just to talk about some team building experiences in the school building. And of course, a lot of the stuff we haven't been able to do this year, but we're hopeful to get back to a more traditional setting next year. We also just wanted to put this slide in here because people want to talk about extracurricular opportunities, even though this is primarily a curricular event. But we do have a lot of extracurricular opportunities for the kids. And as you can see, there's a lot of sports. Some of them are interscholastic when you play against other schools. Some of them are intramural when you just play against your own classmates. We've got a strong theater program. More recently, we have a social justice group. And then, of course, we've got the fun stuff like school dances. And again, we hope to get back to that as much as possible next year. And I think the next slide is about scheduling. Mrs. Vieira, are you going to talk about that one?
Yes. So we are currently working on what next year's schedule looks like, and we are all remaining hopeful that it will become an in-person model, so we can resume some of those great activities that we've had in the past. But some of our next transitional events, as Mr. Kazarian pointed out, we do have a virtual transition meeting coming up next week, where our counselors are going to meet with all of the incoming 7th graders to tell them a little bit more about our courses that we will offer and what the registration process will look like. Traditionally, we do a paper-based registration form. This year, we're embracing technology as with everything else, and we're going to do an electronic version. So sometime in the beginning of April, your students will receive a Google form to fill out for some of their course registration choices for an elective and world language. And then as we continue with our scheduling process, at the end of the spring, you will receive something called a course verification form. That form is simply to verify the courses that your child is lined up to take the next year. And that form is not the final schedule. We work through the summer on finalizing student schedules, and we will be publishing your student's final schedule and for instance, which period of the day that each course will meet will happen in August when we host an open house. And hopefully, again, that will be that in-person model that we can have everyone into the school. It will also be an opportunity for students to walk around and see where their courses are.
Thank you, Ms. Vieira. So the next couple slides are the guidance slides, and I believe that Mr. Kazarian has already gone over that information. Unless there's anything you'd like to add, Alan?
Oh, I got it, Tom. It's good.
All right, great. So I believe it was right about the time where the meeting was mistakenly ended before that I was explaining the department heads will take all the attendees here through their respective discipline. And then at the end, we will open it up to a Q&A, which I'll turn the chat function on, and you'll be able to ask your questions right in the chat. So As we go through each discipline, please just make a note of the questions that you might have, and we'll make sure that we get through as many questions as we can. All right. So the first department head is going to be Ms. Cox for ELA courses.
Hi, I'm Sarah Cox. I'm the English department head for grades 7 through 12. And I tried to put everything on one slide. Every incoming 7th grader will have 7th grade English. And so it is a course, as you would expect, with quite a bit of reading, writing, language study, speaking and listening, and some special opportunities that we offer students. In brief, the core texts that students read are The Outsiders, which you may have read when you were in 7th grade. It is still a big hit with students. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, and Warriors Don't Cry by Melba Pattillo Beals, who is one of the Little Rock Nine. It's a memoir of her time in integrating schools. With all of these books, students have choices of companion texts that are grade appropriate texts that are high interest, engaging books that students can link thematically to the core texts. We do a lot of teaching of writing and really help students to hone their writing skills through a variety of genres of writing, persuasion, essays in response to literature, and creative writing, which includes narrative writing, where they tell stories about themselves, and fictional, they make up stories. And also students write and read and sometimes perform poetry. Of course, we study vocabulary, grammar, and we play with language, and keep things fun as much as possible with the study of language. And students hone their speaking and listening skills through Socratic seminars. Usually there's a lot of group work, students talking to each other. We are still making that work online or in a hybrid format this year, but it will be even better when we can all be together again. Students are guided towards giving presentations, and we have one of our special events is a poetry slam, usually near the end of the school year. For the past couple of years, we've had a special event where professional poets come and lead our students through workshops to help them prepare for the poetry slam, and just again, to play with words and language. And we hope to do that again next year. That's through a grant with the Falmouth Education Foundation. And finally, we try to persuade students to enter contests when they have a great piece of writing ready. We frequently have winners in the Scholastic contest or the Cape Cod Classroom Times newspaper contest. I think that's everything for ELA.
Thanks, Sarah. Next, we have Carrie Fitzpatrick, our math department head.
Hi, my name is Carrie Fitzpatrick, and I'll be talking to you about the different courses offered for math at the Lawrence School. First, I'd like to talk about just the main topics that the content standards are designed around. So we have ratios and proportions, the number system, my favorite, expressions and equations, geometry, and statistics and probability. Now, this is the 7th grade core content. And in our 7th grade math course, all of these topics will be covered. In our 7th grade advanced course, math course, these topics will be covered in addition to about 25 to 30% of the 8th grade standards. So it's a very faster paced course, and the advanced class covers more standards. This is the first time that students will be selected for an advanced class. And the most important thing I have to emphasize is that they're placed in the correct class, not that they're in an advanced class. The 7th grade math content is challenging, whether you're in the 7th grade class or an advanced class. Rebecca, could you? Thank you. During the classes, the teachers work on representing a lot of the math in many different ways. We use this STAR model to represent the multiple representations. So we want the students to be able to speak, to write, to be able to graph, to make tables, to just to be able to work with mathematics in many different ways. To the right, you'll see an example of one of those. This is called a rule of 4, where we give a student a word problem. We ask them to make a table out of it. We ask them to draw an equation. And then with that same problem, they're graphing it. So they're representing it in 4 different ways. Rebecca? If your child is placed in 7th grade math, in 8th grade, they will have either go into 8th grade math or they'll go into Algebra 1. If they're placed in 7th grade advanced math, in 8th grade, you'll notice they can go into the same 2 courses. So at no point do we shut students off from going into algebra in 8th grade just because they're placed in a grade 7th grade math and not advanced in the 7th grade. They still have the opportunity to get into the advanced math in 8th grade. Now, there are a few different ways that, when we're placing them in 7th or 8th grade, we look at their grades, teacher recommendation, MCAS scores, a math placement test. And these have all been historical in the past. But as you know, last year we didn't have the MCAS test. And this year we're still waiting for approval to give the placement test. So if you have questions on that, when time comes, you can talk, either call or email me. Rebecca? There's one more slide.
I'm trying.
Sorry.
There we go.
I wanted to give you just some important strategies for having success in 7th grade math. It's really important that the kids do their daily homework. The homework is really meant to practice what they're doing in class. And if they keep up on that, they'll really, they'll be on top of their work. Completing the homework on time is important. Asking for help when they need it, not waiting too long. Making sure they're asking questions in class. And then you can check, keep up on them too, checking into Powerschool every week. And if you have questions, you should also ask questions, talk to the teacher, call me if there's some other question that you have that you just haven't been able to get answered. Please don't be afraid to ask or call. My email is cfitzpatrick@falmouth.k12.ma.us, and it's on the website, so you don't have to write it down now. Thank you very much. That's it for the math.
Excellent. Thanks, Carrie. Next, we have Chris Brothers with our science department.
Hey, good evening. My name is Chris Brothers, and I'm the head of the science department. And so our science classes, as you can see from these pictures, are very hands-on. The kids get to work with a lot of equipment and supplies and practice science skills and experiment and analyze data. Our curriculum is grade 6 through 8. span that includes earth science, physical science, some chemistry and life science, each of those topics being taught at all three grade levels. Next slide, please. And in addition to our core science courses for 7th and 8th grade, we also have engineering courses at 7th and 8th grade. Both of these are trimester-long courses, and the students have the opportunity to learn how to use a variety of hand tools and power tools and work through the engineering design process to build things like robots and bridges and Rube Goldberg devices. So that's a very popular class at the Lawrence School. Next slide, please. We also have a lot of partnerships. We're really fortunate in this town to have all the different organizations in Woods Hole and others. So we've been working for about 26 years with the Quoit Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve, studying water quality in Shivricks Pond. We also, not this year, but most years, have a cross-age science teaching program where 8th graders go down to the elementary school to teach elementary school students science. And we often take field trips to places like the Boston Aquarium or the Boston Museum of Science and various institutions in Woods Hole. Next slide, please. So some of the other kind of enrichment opportunities that we have for 7th grade and 8th grade. We've been partnering for 5 years now with Mass Audubon on a vernal pool project, and we built a vernal pool in front of the school. You've probably seen it, and a pollinator garden. So the 7th graders in particular spend a lot of time out working there in the vernal pool. We hope next year when we're back, hopefully in normal times, to renew our partnerships with NOAA and Woods Hole, Oceanographic Institution, some programs like NOAA Day in the Village, and a program that we had a pilot of 2 years ago where 8th graders went over to Cuttyhunk Island for a residential environmental education program there. Next slide, please. And then finally, of course, 2 other big programs that we run or are affiliated with the science department. The first is the Advanced Studies in Leadership program, which is a 3-week-long residential program at Mass Maritime that your child might qualify for. You would get a letter about that usually in November if they are a candidate. And of course, the science fair, which is a major event. And our middle school, 7th grade and 8th grade students right now are working on their science fair projects that are due in about 2 weeks. So that's something to look forward to when they move up to the high school, up to the Lawrence School as well. Okay, that's it for science, Ms. Vieira. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Next, we have Mike Feeney with the Social Studies Department.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Mike Feeney. Before I get started with my slides, I just wanted to let people know that I, too, am a parent of a student that's gone through the Lawrence School. And I will tell you that his experience at the Lawrence School really helped him shape his way for a successful transition to the high school. It's unbelievable what these teachers do. They're really unbelievable how much help they offer kids. And my son was definitely someone that needed some extra help in different ways, and they were always there for him. So this is a great place to be. Rebecca, if you could go to the next slide. For the 7th grade, what we're looking at is a lot of skills that are emphasized: note-taking, map, graph, and chart reading, determining cause and effect and relationships, and annotation with writing skills. In 7th grade, it's a world history curriculum, and then in grade 8, the students actually move on to a civics class, which we'll talk about later on. If I could have the next slide, please. More skills. Understanding the difference between primary and secondary sources, again, an important historical skill. They start also at the 7th grade to form arguments and establish your position for a Socratic seminar. 7th graders also are involved in Rebecca, if you could advance the slide. Thanks. So the topics that the 7th grade students go through, again, it's a combination of a world history and geography course. Our first unit is the Introduction to Historical Skills. How do social scientists interpret the past? If we could have the next slide. Unit 2, Ancient Egypt, Middle East, and Mesopotamia. And the question that the kids are looking at with this particular topic, how did geography affect the settlement of these societies? And again, you can see how we can build in the geography into this piece. Next slide. Ancient India, essential question. How did Hinduism and Buddhism affect the culture of ancient India? The students really seem to like this particular topic where they get some background into this. Next slide. Ancient China, how did the Silk Road promote an exchange of goods and ideas? Personally, one of my favorite topics to look at is the kids get not only the historical background of China, but they also look at the economic ideas of the Silk Road, which is really cool. Next slide. Ancient Greece, the essential question here is how did democracy develop in ancient Greece? This topic and the next topic are going to be really important because those are the two topics that help build the bridge to 8th grade with the civics course. And then if I could have the next slide, please. And then lastly, ancient Rome. How did the benefits of the Roman expansion outweigh the costs? Which is always kind of a big picture. A lot of historians argue this, and that's where the argumentation comes in. Next slide, please. The other course that our department offers currently at the 7th grade level as a trimester course is our social justice course. This is a new course that started this year. And when we look at the curriculum for this course, it focuses on historical case studies like the Brown versus Board of Education decision, Supreme Court. We also look at ageism, the idea of empathy and tolerance. Students also develop history-related skills in this course. And this is a course that the kids cycle through. Mr. Valentine is our teacher, and he's been really, really good with the kids. And the kids really like this course. There's so many different topics that come up, and the kids have been really interactive with it. And that's it for social studies.
Thank you, Mike. Next, we have Dr. Pat DePillo with our World Language Department. Dr. DePillo?
No, I was muted.
Okay,
Thanks, Rebecca.
no problem.
I should say merci and gracias. Bienvenidos a todos. I'm Pat DePillo, the World Language Department Chair for grades 7 through 12. And this is what we do in world language at the Lawrence School. If we can have the, thank you. Obviously, as you can see from the first slide, the goal of learning a world language is to engage in basic communication via conversation. But we don't leave out the other skills like reading or written work. And we're all about the study of the Hispanic and Francophone culture wherever it takes place in the world. And we're also calling more attention to the global world, which is anywhere that anybody speaks French or Spanish. And that includes the islands in the Caribbean, African countries, some of the islands speak French, Canada speaks French, obviously. So, and Spanish all over Central and South America and Mexico. Thank you. We offer both Spanish and French at grade 7 and 8, and either one of them gets you a full year of world language credit for the high school. However, the high school has its own language requirement. All students are eligible to take a language, even if you are in a math lab or an English lab. Now, that's presupposing that we were running a normal schedule, which this year we are not. So typically it's a triad. And usually students take both 7th and 8th grade French or Spanish. And we also offer world languages and cultures to grade 7 and 8, which is more along the lines of the global world and global citizenship that I mentioned before. Teachers use what's called Creative Language Classroom. It's really Adio's textbook. I guess I should have that on there. And world languages and cultures happens in both French and Spanish. And they, teachers create their own units for those particular classes. More often than not, they use the materials from the Creative Language Classroom because they're so readily, lend themselves to a lot of spoken language. And regular 7th and 8th grade Spanish or French have thematic units that we call Understanding by Design. And when we give our assessments, they're called integrated performance assessments because they have 3 modes: interpersonal, back and forth conversation, interpretive, reading and listening, and presentational, which could be writing. And it can also be spoken. Next slide, please. We focus on the 4 skills, and the teachers are expected to use the target language 90% of the time. And I have, observed many classes where students are also using the target language 90% plus of the time. It's the way that Creative Language Classroom or these teachers, avail themselves of a lot of professional development. And I just reviewed a technique yesterday that enables students to, use a lot of language in a group setting. And that, again, it's integrated performance assessment of interpersonal, interpretive, and presentational. And we also focus on cultural proficiency, which is more or less what the World Languages and Cultures course focuses on. We expect that at grade 7, students will attain what's called a novice high level of proficiency. That means they can, use stock phrases or simple memorize things, lists of words, single sentence situations. And when we get into intermediate low in grade 8, they are, asking and answering questions. And one of the hallmarks of the intermediate is if a student asks a question and another answers it, someone else adds a follow-up question. So it keeps the conversation, teaches them how to keep the conversation going, which is what we do naturally as humans. So, and we hope that grade 8 Spanish and French students will be participating in STAMP. That stands for Standard Assessment for the Measurement of Proficiency. It's our proficiency testing. And this is, as I said here, it's the 5th year. I'm pretty sure that's accurate. So we've been doing this for, quite a while and awarding students who achieve their benchmark. They can't, we do give them certificates. The only people that can really count the seal of biliteracy testing is our seniors, because they either attain intermediate high, which is the seal of biliteracy, or an advanced low, which is the seal of biliteracy with distinction. Those are the only 2 that are recognized in the state of Massachusetts. And I think that's, and our grading policy. I revamp this every year, although I think I like this. And it seems to work well, where the focus is 90% on what students can do with the language. That's what we're after. We don't, we want to know how they use it, not not the fact that they're, not necessarily memorizing, but let's say practicing or any kind of iteration, but what can they actually do with it? How do they demonstrate that they have, studied a world language? And the other 10% are homework, quizzes, class participation, a lot of formative assessment, although a lot of formative assessment doesn't even get graded because it's just that. It's preparing you for, a final, not a final exam, but a more substantial assessment, at the end of a unit or something like that. And I think that's it, right, Rebecca?
Yes, thank you, Pat.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Next, we have Steve Edwards with the Fine Arts Department.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. I am the department head for the Fine Arts, Art and Music for the district, and I'm also a parent of a student who's currently a senior at FHS and went to this wonderful school, Lawrence School, and had a great experience there. This is also a part of our program where I asked Ms. Vieira and Mr. Bushy to sing our school song. And if you could just cue up the music, Ms. Vieira. No, we don't have that. Oh, okay. I thought that would be a great breakup for the, for the program. But if you go to the next slide, I would appreciate it. We'll just get on with the business, I guess. Your kids are in for a treat. We have a general music class that offers ukulele now. We have covered guitar and taught our students in the general music class to play guitar. But this year we've transitioned over to ukulele and our kids are loving it. So I hope that your child also gets to participate in that. It's typically before COVID, we were a semesterized course. Currently, we are in the trimester setting. But either way, we expect that as many students as we can get involved in general music to learn how to play the ukulele and or guitar. But your child also has the opportunity to participate in band. They may have been working with Mr. Borning at the Morris Pond School. So they'd be working with Mr. Fitek, our band teacher. And we have a band that meets every other day opposite his general music classes for the 8th grade. We also have an opportunity for chorus to be rehearsed during school, and that also meets opposite general music classes with Miss Cahill. And we also offer a strings class here at the Lawrence School for anyone interested in learning to play the violin, the viola, cello, or bass. We include guitar and piano in that class as well. And on occasion, some other string instruments if students are looking for an outlet. So these are some of our performance ensembles and again, general music classes that we offer here at the Lawrence School. Could you go to the next slide, Rebecca? Thank you. We have a great art program, and Ms. Van Moy will be teaching your 7th grade student the fundamentals and elements, including color, form, line, shape, texture, values. They have great projects that they work on with Ms. Van Moy, who's a wonderful educator. She really brings out the best in our kids. They have really fun projects that they work on, and then of course display at our various art shows. And I'm remiss to mention that we also use a great deal of technology when we're talking about the art program as well, and that now we have Artsonia, which is an online art program that displays all our kids' work and provides an opportunity for parents, whether they're here in town or maybe family that's extended and far away, to get to see the work your child is doing in class. It's really a great program, and Miss Van Moy does a great job. Also meets on the trimester system, which means that Ms. Van Moy is on team and participating in all that support that Mr. Bushy was mentioning earlier. Could you go to the next slide, Mr. Vera? So we have additional activities that meet after school, extracurricular activities like jazz band, that'll meet after school. We have a vocal jazz program for select jazz students, 7th and 8th. We have a National Junior Art Honor Society program at the Lawrence School. We just started a couple of years ago. We're very proud of that program, which connects with the Art Honors program at the high school. So if your students are looking to excel in art, they may be chosen to participate in that program and work with Miss Van Moy and Miss Ferris, who's our 8th grade art teacher. We do a number of concerts throughout the year. We have parades, obviously, for the band. and a number of festivals that kids can participate in. So now students at this age can audition for and participate in orchestras and band and choirs and jazz bands outside the Falmouth public school system. And if they're accepted into that, they'll get to work with high school directors or college directors or even professional conductors, which is really fascinating and a great time for the kids. And we do a lot of trips, both with art and music. Our kids will have an opportunity to see some local exhibits and museums, and certainly experience nature and what we can perceive from nature and create new projects with. And our music students also have an opportunity to travel around and get some great experiences and with music as well. We're really looking to strengthen your child's skill and experiences with topics including note reading and rhythm reading. And as I mentioned earlier, they learn to play a new instrument aligned with many popular music pieces, and they learn to compose as well. And so if you could go to the next slide, Ms. Vera, I think I have one more. I just and it goes off. I just wanted to say that the additional programs should also include Falmouth band parents and choral boosters. And I'm running out of time, so I just want to say I think art and music could be the best part of your child's school day, and I really hope that you'll sign them up for our courses. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve. And you got a little preview there for our next slide presentation from Julie Williams-Tinkham.
Thank you, Mrs. Vieira. My name is Julie Williams-Tinkham. I'm the Director of Physical Education, Health, and Wellness for the district. So we have 3 educators. I tried to include pictures of them doing some physical activity. And our fun yearbook photo from when I was at Lawrence, and my son is actually in 8th grade this year, has had a great experience. So you can definitely go to the next slide, Mrs. Vieira. This gives you an overview of what's in our health and physical education curriculum. We're hoping that next year we can also run a physical education elective. We'll see what our schedule is able to fit. I know there's a lot of things that are still trying to be worked out. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about any of these topics. For health, we try to do a skills-based curriculum. So we do a lot of decision-making and goal setting, trying to do skills-based work within those units. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final presentation is a video from Cindy Tugis, who is the Director of Digital Learning. So I just have to exit out of this slideshow here and call up a new video for you.
While you do that, Ms. Vera, I just wanted to introduce someone who's not here. A critical member of our team is Dr. Margaret Valdez, who's our Special Ed Building Administrator. And she could not make it tonight, but if at any time during the Q&A you have questions that have to do with special ed scenarios, we'll absolutely make sure that we connect you with Dr. Valdez at some point over the next couple of school days.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Feeney, you're on my screen that I can see. So when I hit play, if you can't hear this, just give me a little wave and I'll try to do some audio problem solving. So here we go. Cannot hear a thing.
No, we're actually still looking at the PowerPoint right now.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Let's see here.
I'm going to turn the chat function on so people can start keying in questions.
Let's see, how about now?
Yep.
I see her, but I don't hear her.
All right. I'm going to leave the slide up if we don't have the audio piece with it, just to share what we have.
the digital literacy class is one of the trimester courses that you've heard about, with art being one trimester, engineering, and then digital literacy and innovation is the third trimester course that your children will take in 7th and 8th grade.
No. Trying to play with the audio settings. I'm sorry, people.
That's okay. Folks have questions about what to do and what we do in digital literacy. You can put them in the chat, but she's got some descriptors down about some of the cool projects they do in that course.
Perfect. We'll be able to get that up there. All right, I am going to stop sharing, Mr. Bushy.
Great. There is a question in the chat about what is Powerschool. So Mr. Kazarian or Ms. Vieira, do you want to
I can take that.
one? Go ahead.
So Powerschool is our online grading program, and it's also the program that we use for scheduling. So when you come over to Lawrence School, your students will receive a login, and families also receive a separate login. And it's a way that you can track your students' assignments and grades. It's a very useful tool for you to be able to have some conversations and keep track of maybe some assignments that are missing, or maybe need a little review. It's also the place that we have used to publish our report cards. So we no longer have published paper report cards. So our mid-quarter reports and our progress reports and our final grades are all on the Powerschool program.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything to that, Mr. Kazarian, or can we go to the next question?
You can go ahead. Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Maxton, thank you for your patience. I see in the chat you were asking about football and baseball. So traditionally, we offer 8th graders an opportunity to play on the freshman football team. We did not do that this year, but depending on what the guidelines are for the end of the summer, that would be something that we would try to advocate for. Again, 8th graders being able to play on the freshman football team. We do not have baseball here, but the town programs go all the way up to 8th grade, so the students can participate in that, unless, and this is not consistent every year, but in years past, we have had times where 8th graders would play on the freshman team. That's not something that we do every year. Mr. Edwards, there's a question in here from Melissa. Can fine arts classes be taken all year?
Yeah, I don't know if my answer came up in the chat as well, but yes, students can enroll in band, choir, and chamber strings for the entire year. They're offered as a semester course, but they can certainly stay in there for the duration of the year. Additionally, we offer jazz band, vocal jazz, and NAJS for the art program. Those are extracurricular activities that again occur all year long. So there are many programs and many opportunities that kids can participate in the fine arts throughout the entire year. And I encourage them to do so. It's a lot of fun.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Katie Collins asks a really good question in the chat about will students be introduced to Schoology at the end of this year or the beginning of next year? It's a really great question, Katie. So we haven't actually talked about how to build the bring the 6th graders into Schoology before the end of the school year, but I am making a note of your question, and we'll work with Kathleen Reardon at Morse Pond to get some more information about making that process as smooth as possible for your children in the fall. Great question, Katie. And there's Mr. Edwards' answer to previous question. John Dutra is asking, does my child have to choose between French or Spanish? Do you want to take that one, Dr. DePillo? You're muted, Pat.
Yes, they do have to make a choice for one or the other. And there is another option at the high school, and they can always pick up a second language there. But typically, if you pick French, you are in grade 7, you are in grade 8 French, and grade 7 Spanish, and grade 8 Spanish.
Thank you. We have a question about what types of electives are there. So you've heard about the courses that we offer on an elective option. Primarily, they are the courses that Mr. Edwards has highlighted, selecting into band, chorus, strings. We have in years past had a double PE option that we will see if we're going to work into the schedule again next year. You choose between French or Spanish, like we had just mentioned, but a lot of the offerings that you've heard about tonight are on the trimester schedule, which means that every student gets them. So we think it's really great. We think it's a really great program in as much as all of our students all the way through 8th grade get engineering, art, DLI. So good question. And Maxon's asking again, can I take another language like German as well as French and Spanish? Pat, you want to talk a little bit about what the other offerings are at the high school? I know you just mentioned you can double up, but.
I assume that Maxton is asking about that at the high school. We do not currently offer German. We have Latin. We, in general, in the district, I believe, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but I believe there's interest in adding another language, but I can't speak for the superintendent and what her timeline is, but German is not one that we have considered, but anything is possible. Mr. Kazarian sometimes offers, through VHS certain things, but I'm not sure. I don't think that's what the intent of your question, but we usually, offer VHS if a student has, for some reason, a scheduling conflict, or there's some other reason the student can't, physically be in the classroom.
Maxon, I see you in the chat, and I thank you for thinking ahead and getting as involved in this process as possible. But to answer your question, the only language options at Lawrence as of now are French and Spanish. But, if you want to advocate for implementation of another language, then let's get together and talk about it. Dr. DePillo, I'm sure, be all ears to talk about that.
Not a problem. She just has another question about the world languages and cultures. Typically, in a typical year, if a student is, that particular track of coursework is for students who are in either a math lab or an English lab. In other words, they can't fit the regular scheduled French or Spanish class into their schedule. So that's the slot that they are, I want to say funneled, but encouraged to, take. Doesn't mean you can't take anything later on. It just means that at that particular time, you need remedial work in math or English, and that precludes you from, taking, that's a language option that's part of that scheduling module.
Thanks, Pat. And John Dutra, I don't want your question to get lost there. I made a note, John, of your question. It seems like might be specific to an individual learner. So I'm going to talk to Dr. Valdez and make sure that we can answer any kind of specific questions you might have about your child's specific learning needs. Did we get to Stacy's questions? Take French, Spanish, they take world language and cultures instead. Did you just answer that one, Pat?
Yes.
Okay, and good question by John D. Is there a student study organization library elective? No, we do not have a library elective. We do have a really great functional library media center, but we don't have it as a course like you might have it in Morse Pond with Ms. Abbott. But we do want to make sure that kids are learning study habits and organizational skills. And those might be themes that we would do during during our regular school year when we have an advisory program. You might work with your advisory teacher to do some mini lessons on organization. And depending on what next year looks like, that could be a good place where we talk about supporting kids through those skills. And I think that you'll find like a lot of the teachers here at the Lawrence School across disciplines try and weave those kinds of skills into their regular lessons, taking it really seriously as like transitioning to a secondary school, making sure that they're staying on top of the kids and working with them to make sure they're organized. So it's a really good question. Thanks, Max, and I'm glad that you're excited about 7th grade. It's going to be good. So we got a question about how lunch is set up on a normal day, not during the coronavirus. It's a good question. And we have 3 lunch periods in a normal year. This year we have 2, and they're done with sister teams. So you'll be in the cafeteria with your 7th grade team and 1 8th grade team. And the lunch is a little bit different here than it is at Morse Pond. We do not usually have a recess, but we have 30 minutes for lunch, and usually it takes kids about 18 to 20 minutes to eat lunch, and then they can go outside and have some free time outside for the back 10 minutes of lunch or so. There are no assigned seats. You've got more freedom than you might have at Morse Pond, a little bit more adult responsibility to clean up after yourselves and make sure you're taking care of your space. And other than that, it might seem pretty similar to lunch at Morse Pond. I took my eyes off the chat there. Was anyone keeping an eye which question might be next?
Yeah, we have 2 similar questions there of, is there a free period or a study hall? So our previous schedule, we did not have any sort of free period or study hall built in. Our academic support period was the period that students who have the educational plans use for their strategies class.
Thank you. And all right, I got caught up back there in the chat. I see a question from Melissa about the arts being, she was asking specifically about drawing, painting. So, so those art classes, like we're talking about on the trimester course. So the students on team will have them for 60 days in a row, in our traditional schedule. So they're going all year, but each team will only have them for 1/3 of the year. And then they transition to engineering and then to digital literacy and innovation. So, one of the, I guess you could call it a con, is that you are not going to be drawing or painting all year long, but the pro is that you get exposed to the different disciplines over the course of the year. Good question, Melissa. Thanks, Steve. I see it added into the chat. All right. I think, did we, Mr. Feeney, can you double check that we answered all these questions? Maxton, you can go ahead and key into the chat. I see your hand up. You take an elective more than once. Over the course of your time at Lawrence, you could take band, for example, both in 7th grade and 8th grade, yes, but not during the same school year. You wouldn't be able to do that. No worries. Not a problem at all, Max. And I got kicked out of my own meeting, so no problem for leaving your hand up. The tech issues persist, but we're going to roll with them. So it looks like the questions have stopped coming in, which is great. I want to just reiterate what I was saying at the beginning of the year. I'm really excited to help assist all your kids with the transition from grade 6 to 7. We've got a really, really wonderful team here. Our department heads work very closely with our teachers who all care deeply about your kids and their success. We're all going to work hard to make sure that the transition is as smooth as possible and that they have as positive an experience as possible. Any questions that did not get answered in the chat, please feel free to send myself an email directly, or if it's easier to for you to email Dr. Reardon. Her and I are in touch regularly, and we'll be able to follow up shortly if she lets me know of any questions. Some folks in here I will follow up with afterwards, John, and someone was asking about Schoology for sixth graders again, which again a great question. I think that was Katie. So that's it for the evening. Thank you so much for coming. I hope everyone has a great night, and please keep in touch. Thank you very much, everyone.